Hey everyone. So yeah, I'm trying to record this on my MetaQuest. Third time's the charm. I think I had to readjust the settings because basically I had a 1080p 20 MPBs, if you will, bit rate and 20 MPB bit rate, and then 60 frames. So I just went back to the 1080p 30 and then 5. So hopefully that'll work better and allow me to post this. Excuse me. But I wanted to come on here and give you guys kind of an update as to what happened yesterday and why lately you guys had only been seeing like one video per day. Well, one, I don't want to take a chance so much with my laptop when it comes to like using the movie maker and all that. So I don't want to do that right now. And the other reason is on Monday night around around the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock hour, I had shut down my computer completely. I basically shut it down because, according to what I looked up online, if you shut it down after being in use for a while, it will allow for it will allow basically for the components to cool off and give you a better result down the line. So I did that, and then basically about, I would say, a little over 24 hours ago, around this time frame, as you can see the timer on the clock, a little over 24 hours ago, basically, I turned this computer back on. I turned it back on, and instead of it just going to the HP, like when you turn on the computer, it'll say Dell or HP, and have that little loading circle going, and then suddenly it'll go to the screensaver or the screen app, or the the screensaver with the time and everything, so you can log in, the login page, if you will. So you know, you would think that it would do automatically go to that, but it didn't. Instead, it basically what it gave me was basically a fixing drive C thing, and it did give me the option. Unlike last time, it did the fixing drive C deal. Um, it did give me the option this time around to press F6 to skip it to, I guess go use the computer. But I wanted to make sure everything was taken care of. I didn't want to chance anything that might have been damaged, and I want to make sure they fix everything. And because I let it cool off for a while, it did allow it to go a little faster. Now, what was interesting though is when I went and when I went and turned, when I went to go check on it after it did all that, of course it went into the blank standby screen like it normally would if you're not using it for a while, like kind of a standby hybrid sleep mode. And what happened, basically, long story short, is essentially, I turned the screen back on. I clicked on the mouse here, and instead of seeing, like, let's say it's still saying welcome, or basically I'm not saying welcome, but being on the login screen, or something like that, which it should have been. It should have been on the login screen. Instead, what it gave me after it did the fixing drive C stuff is it gave me a a blue screen. It gave me a blue. I'm trying to think about what I was going to say there. It gave me a blue screen, and I'm thinking blue screen of death, right? But I was able to hear the thing still working, so I'm thinking, okay, it's just still loading. And then up came the please wait words on there with the little circle and everything. And then after a while, I got into the login screen. So I went into the login. It went to the Windows, and it did that for a bit. And then after a while, it finally did come up. But what was interesting about it coming up and everything, what was interesting about that is essentially everything was already up and running. You had the McAfee virus protection thing telling me, hey, everything's expired. You might want to re up and all that. And usually I'll just click that off. And then the Opera browser popped up. I clicked that off. I went to the side thing right here, the little arrow there, and then the little triangle there, and I basically clicked off. I turned off Grammarly because that kind of slows things down for me, and I think anybody else. It slowed things down. And then after clicked off Grammarly, I also clicked off OneDrive because I turned off OneDrive because obviously it's not working for me right now, so why have it? And even if it did, it causes things to load a little slow because it's got to make a backup of stuff and everything like that, and so on and so forth. Anyway, to get to the point, after I did all that, usually things start. It'll still load. It'll still put like the finishing touches, and then finally, when I see this light be like that, when I don't see a light blinking anymore, then I know it's ready to go. Well, instead of letting me probably get ready to get back on there and resume things, turn on the browser and such, instead I ended up getting the blue screen saying, "Hey, something is wrong. Something is not working." And so I'm thinking, okay, fine, turn it off, let it do its thing. Once again, kind of reboot it. Hard reset by pressing the power button and all that. Basically as they instruct, do the hard reset, let it reboot, let it bounce back and everything, and that's what I did. So when I got to login screen, I logged in as normal, and then it went to the Windows welcome screen, right? But guess what happened? Just when it looked like it might be getting ready to go to the main area, my main work area, where all my apps are and everything, what happened is it ended up going into the blue screen again. I'm thinking, what's going on here? So, third time's the charm, right? Thank the Lord. Third time's the charm. And I decide to do what I should have done the first time around. Or the second time around the first time I got the blue screen, I should say, yesterday, is I unplugged this and this and this. Well, I did unplug the internet cable, but I unplugged these things, as well as my microphone, because the keyboard and the external hard drive and the microphone were connected to my multi-tap, my USB port multi-tap here. And I disconnected those. I disconnected the dongle to the mouse and everything, turned it back on, gave it time, and thank the Lord, I praised him for this. I even praised him this morning, prayed over the computer this morning as well. Everything turned out okay. But what was interesting on both indications, and maybe it's just me, but the mouse basically seemed to be going very slow with the arrow. In other words, this arrow here, right here where I'm pointing, like here you could see it's moving okay, right? It's moving fine and everything. And basically, when you go over to, let's say I want to reset and check stuff, right? It's working fine. It's working perfectly fine. One click brings me up, refreshes the page. There you go, and everything, and that should about do it, right? That should about do it. So anyway, the point I'm getting at is the mouse, no matter what kind of mouse you have, should allow you to do that. It should allow you to do that, right? Well, what happened is, and I looked this up as well, the mouse obviously was becoming faulty because basically instead of doing like the one click like that, I'd have to do this, just to get it to click, just to get it to refresh a page or go to another page, another web page and everything. So basically what happened is that this was, basically dying on me. And I had noticed this for a while to where when I'd go on a screen, all of a sudden, all of a sudden, the mouse, the arrow here would get a little slow when moving. And I'm not sure if it was the page I was on. It shouldn't have been the page because some of the pages like Pixverse and VDU and all that were fine. They had been fine in the past. So, to me, it had to be the mouse because it did this a couple of times to where it would be slow. And I'm thinking, what's going on here, right? What's going on? So I looked online. As let me see. I'm going to adjust this just a bit, guys. Hold on. But I looked online. Whoops, I don't want to do that. Let me get back there. But like I said, I looked online, and I did this, and this is what I found. This is what I found right here. This is the information. Basically, it states overall that a lot of what you read right there could be the reason why the mouse would cause issues and everything. And then it says use a wired mouse if problem persists. So a lot of things could happen and everything because of a malfunctioning mouse. So yeah, basically that's what I think was the problem because before anybody says anything, and let me just get out of the browser here for a second. Before anybody says anything, basically when I disconnected this just for GP, I tested it on my I tested it on my retrocade here by putting it into the second port, putting this into one of these, and then taking this controller, the second controller, and plugging it in here. And I basically, as I talked about in one video before, it turned out okay. It turned out fine. Nothing was malfunctioning. It didn't say it wasn't registering or anything like that. Everything was fine. I mean, yeah, I had this like this for a bit because that's the only way I could fit it and all that. That was the only way I could fit it because three things attached to it. But basically, it was fine. It was absolutely fine. And I even noticed sometimes when it would boot up, even without the mouse, or even without the mouse, but some of the things, some of the other things put in there, basically it was fine. The arrow would move fine. So my assumption is, excuse me, is it has to be the mouse. It has to be this mouse here, which is a UHNU gaming mouse. Now you might say, well, why would I have a gaming mouse? Well, one, it lights up. It has multiple. It lights up multicolors, and I figured it looks stylish, good price, affordable. I might as well get it, and I did. So I got the gaming mouse. That wasn't an issue. That was not an issue whatsoever. When I first got, I got the gaming mouse to help me out and everything because the other mouse wasn't working well. And that mouse would take actual batteries, but it would be wireless as well. But the point I'm getting at is I wanted to have something a little different, not reliant so much on actual batteries, but be more reliant on, something like this, where you could plug it in and charge it. And when I first got it and did all that, everything was fine. But over time, I noticed that when I would charge it via my computer or a USB AC plug, that when I would charge it, yeah, it would fully charge, but then it would die out more quickly. It would die out quicker. So my thought, honestly, is it has to be the mouse is finally just saying it's done. And yeah, I've gotten a lot of usage out of it. Don't get me wrong, but as you could probably tell, but yeah, apparently I think the mouse internally was saying that it was done. So for right now, I'm just going to go with the touchpad and everything. And if I find another mouse down the line and everything that's more, more willing, that's more, is newer, I should say, I'm going to probably look into that. But I am going to use the touchpad for right now. I'm going to use that, and we'll see where we go from there with it. But yeah, I just wanted to do this little video, guys, let you know what's going on, what happened, and everything, just in case you're curious. And in conclusion, let me know what. In conclusion, let me ask you this: have any of you dealt with this yourself? Let me know down in the comments as well as in the live chat during the premiere. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. But until then, guys, do all the things in the description to help me out. Check out the Teespring store. Check out the Patreon, Venmo, and Cash App. It helps me out tremendously, especially with the teeth thing coming up and all that, billing, if you will. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are overall on what I've had to say, and also if you've dealt with this before yourself. And until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later.